Welcome to Spenny and the Nets, episode 250. We have reached 250 episodes for this podcast. So, first off, round of applause to me. I was here when it started. I've been here throughout. There has maybe been one or two episodes without me. Maybe. I can't remember if I wasn't on one when Pete was the co-host, but I'll tell you this, I've definitely been there for 98% or 99% of the 250 episodes. My brother Nick is in Japan right now with his girlfriend. They enjoyed the fine city of Tokyo and now they're in the fine city of Kyoto. But I want to thank Nick a ton for helping me get here. I want to thank everybody who's been a part of this show. Alex Wilson from Fireside Sports Media, who helped me get this show off the ground when we were Fireside Nets. Thanks to every single guest that's ever came on. I'm in my feels today. I mean, 250, talking about 4.5, 5 years of this show. It's been a journey, but we're here. End of the 2025-2026 regular season for your Brooklyn Nets, and their final record is 20 wins and 62 losses. They close out the year with 3 losses in a row to Indiana, to Milwaukee, and to Toronto. They gave us a little scare there when they won those 2 games in a row against the Wizards and the Bucks, but they were able to complete the tank, much to the joy of every Nets fan out there who would have freaked the fuck out had we not gotten our way into that bottom 3 lottery odds. So that's where we end up. We secure the top 3 lottery odds after Washington, after Indiana. So the third best chance to get the number 1 seed. And in that regard, this season was a success. And it pains me to say it because I do think this is going to be one of the last years that teams can tank this way. And it obviously was a blemish on the NBA, a blemish on professional basketball in the United States when you have teams trying to lose and put out lineups that will result in losses. But hey, these are the cards that the Nets were dealt. Okay. Could they have won a few more games this season? Probably. How much would that have helped this team long term? It actually would have hurt us long term. Okay. Last season, we didn't tank hard enough. We ended up with the 6th best odds in the lottery, and we got the 8th pick in the draft. Can't start a franchise usually after the top 4 or 5 guys. I know there are exceptions, guys. I shout out to Nets Daily. He always points out that I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was, I think, the 12th pick in the draft. Fine. I acknowledge that it happens. But most of the stars, most of the Cooper Flags, the Victor Wembanyama's, the LeBron Jameses, the Luka Doncic's, a lot of these guys either are first overall, second overall, they go in the top 3. So kudos to the Brooklyn Nets for being able to secure those top 3 lottery, or that bottom 3 team in the league record. And shout out to my dog Homer. He's a little bit pumped too. I mean, this season was a success, and shout out to the Nets for completing the tank. It was a big deal. So that's number 1. Number 2, we're going to walk away with a top 5 guy in this draft, barring any crazy circumstances. We're either going to have AJ Debonsa, Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, Darius Acuff Jr., or Caleb Wilson out of UNC. We're going to have one of those top 5 guys. So Nets fans, we've been waiting for this. We're almost there. We'll find out exactly where our draft pick is in the beginning of May. When are the lottery odds? Let me take a look and figure that out when they announce May lottery NBA. It's a quick Google search. And it is May 10th, Sunday, May 10th, which I believe I will be in Spain for that, which is funny because last year I was in Portugal for the lottery odds. So let's take a look at the calendar. We're looking at I love it when my computer doesn't load. We're looking at May 10th. So I'm here. Yeah, I believe that. No, I actually should be home. I believe I get home that Friday. So I'll be in New Jersey for the lottery. But yeah, it'll be hopefully a lot less disappointing than last year. But like I said, we did our job this year. This was the Nets' goal to tank, and it shames me to say it, but I'm proud of us at least completing the mission. All right. Not going to do much Nets talk today. Obviously, regular season is over. We have the playoffs coming up. We have our playing game starting tomorrow. The last thing I'll talk about the Nets, and then we'll get into a quick playoff preview, two quick segments. I'm going to rank the rookies 1 through 5 as the regular season's over. I feel like I talked about them every episode. So here's my overall ranking, and it's just based on this past season. Okay, it's not based on projections. It's not based on how I think they'll be. But here it is. Number 5 out of the 5 is Drake Powell. And here's what bothered me about Drake Powell. He played till the very end. Okay, when MPJ and Nick Claxton and Noah Clowney and stopped playing and we shut down Jaeger Joman and Nolan Traore's coming off the bench and obviously Danny Wolf had the ankle. Drake Powell and Ben Surratt were out there with our entire Long Island G League roster, and they played the last several games, but Ben Surratt, who I've been extremely critical. If anyone listens to this podcast, Ben Surratt has been my fifth out of fifth rookie for the Nets the entire year. And I think he has to leapfrog over Drake Powell only because he stepped up his game when the competition went down, when he started playing the likes of Milwaukee and Indiana, and he was with these tanking in these tanking lineups. Ben Surratt was able to have an impact on the game. I mean, he crossed the fuck out of, I think it was Yaakov Pertl in that last game of the season. He sent him on his ass. Um, Obviously, the shot still needs a lot of work. I'm not overlooking the shot, but you can see the shiftiness in Surratt's game and his ability to get to the rim at will. If he can clean up the turnovers and develop a better set jump shot from three, he can be a decent player off the bench. I think that's his ceiling right now. But I give Surratt the nod over Drake Powell. I thought Drake Powell had moments throughout the season where you'd see his athleticism on display and you'd say, wow, okay, yeah, I can get behind that. But extremely inconsistent up until the very last few games where he did not, you'd never see a flurry of Drake Powell plays in a row. He just didn't do it. Where he'd have a bucket and a defensive play or multiple buckets in a row. So he is the guy that I need to see give me a little bit more in year two. Surratt, nice end to the season for Ben Surratt. I think at the end he was basically probably the best player on this Nets team in that tanking lineup of 6 or 7 guys. Number 3 out of 5, I'm going to go Jaeger Joman. I was someone who was a little bit underwhelmed with Jaeger's performance. Understand that he's 19 years old. Understand that he's extremely young. He's obviously going to get bigger, get stronger, figure out the physicality in the NBA. But when I looked at the notes on this kid coming out of college, I thought he was going to be a playmaking wing. I did not see the playmaking from him this year. I saw he had the ability to shoot the three-pointer, which is great. But I need to see more than that. I can't tell you how many guys who have played for this Nets team have specialized in three-point shooting and done not much else. Boston Knockbar, Antoine Wright, Eddie House are a few guys that come to mind. Allen Anderson is another guy that comes to mind. There's someone I can't think of this guy right now. But Lucius Harris was another mid-range assassin, three-point guy back in the day. Brian Scalabrine, his 1 or 2 years here, he was more of a three-point shooter. I bring all these names up because these were guys who were extremely one-dimensional. Torian Prince, also a net. All he did was shoot the three. Joe Harris made a career out of it. Shout out to Joe Harris. But I need to see more from Jaeger in year two. I don't want to glorify Peja Stojakovic. I don't. I guess that'd be the ceiling if he's just going to shoot 3-pointers. But this is a guy you took eighth overall. I'm just expecting more out of him next year. That's why he doesn't get higher on my list. Now, if we were doing potential, I would have these two flip-flopped. But because we're not, because we're doing based on 2025, 2026, the regular season, I got to go Nolan Troyori number two. I'm sorry, that's not true. Danny Wolf is number two. Okay, I think Danny Wolf has a chance to be the best rookie out of these five, and I'm man enough to say that. I'm confident enough to say that. But I put Danny Wolf number two in terms of wowing us with a few of his plays. He got a little bit more consistent before he hurt that ankle, but he was good for 10, 11, and 9 each night. When he was really getting a lot of time. He's going to get better at the 3-point shot. I think he has a nice jump shot. I don't think it needs work. And in terms of his decision making ability, like the NBA is going to slow down for him a little bit. He's going to turn the ball over less. And yeah, athletically, not the most athletic guy in the court. That doesn't matter if you have high IQ. Look at these guys historically. Look at Domantas Sabonis' dad, Ardrujonis. I don't know how to say his name, but Daddy Sabonis. Watch his film. He was not the most athletic. Check out a guy like Nikola Jokic, 3-time MVP, not the most athletic. Am I saying Danny Wolf can be Nikola Jokic? I'm not. But he has the IQ, he has the intelligence, and he has the body to make a name for himself in the NBA. And I thought he showed time and time again he can be a good pro in this league. So I have him number two. I have Nolan Troyori as the best rookie out of this class for the Nets. Played the most games, had the biggest impact, was the most efficient, whether it was scoring the basketball, being the fastest guy on the court. Defensively, he had some really nice moments this season, and then passing the ball. Obviously he can beat defenders off the dribble, and he can get guys an open look. So he was the most impressive to me out of the five guys. And he had a tough start to the season. If you guys remember, Traore came off the bench to start. Ben Suraf started, and he had to be sent down to the G League a little bit to get his sea legs. But when he came back up to the Pro League to the big show after that G League stint, he never looked back. And big shout out to him for just progressively getting better as the season went on. Only other bit of Nets news I wanted to bring up, Michael Porter Jr. I saw a quote, I believe it's accurate, says, I don't know who to give credit to. I saw it in passing, so apologies to the media member who asked him this question. MPJ says he wants to be here and grow with this Brooklyn team if it's up to him. Would be great. Now, to me, it kind of depends on who we draft. I'd be 100% okay with MPJ as a building block for this team. Obviously, we saw what he can do as the number one option. He was great. And we've seen what he can do as the number three option when he was in Denver, and it was Jokic, Murray, and then him, or him and Aaron Gordon would kind of take turns as that third weapon. So I'd be happy to have him as the third or fourth guy on a championship level roster. Sure, if you draft a superstar here and then maybe you get another guy in free agency, you're gonna have to work the free agent market, maybe make a trade or two to bring in another guy here. The only guy I'd be a bit nervous about drafting and then also keeping Michael Porter Jr., it's AJ DeBonsa, and it's because they play a very similar position. They're kind of the stretch four. They both like the ball in their hands. MPJ has shown in his career he can play without the ball in his hands. Could DeBonsa do that if MPJ is the number one option to start in DeBonsa's career? I don't know if those two guys can mesh, but Jordy Fernandez is an excellent coach. I think he'll find a way to make it work. But if you draft Cam Boozer, if you draft Darius Acuff Jr., Caleb Wilson, Darren Peterson, you draft any of those guys and you want to keep MPJ as that stretch four to play alongside those guys, or he'd be a three if you draft Caleb Wilson, I'm 100% for that. And also, if you do end up going Caleb Wilson or Cam Boozer, obviously, Noah Clowney or Nick Claxton, one of those two guys, is probably going to be on their way out because you wouldn't want to draft someone that high and keep one of those two guys around. I don't see Noah Clowney wanting to stay in Brooklyn and come off the bench now that he's had a taste of the starting lineup, but I could be wrong. All right, so that's Nets talk. End of the regular season, obviously, for this Brooklyn Nets team. We got to wait till May 10th for the lottery. But I do want to talk playoffs real quick and give my 2 cents on what I think is going to happen in the playoffs. And we're only going to do the play-in games and the first rounds in terms of the matchups that are set. So we'll start in the East. Number Philly versus number 8 Orlando. Vibes are not good in Orlando. Jamal Mosley's on the hot seat. Paulo Banchero does not seem to mesh with this new look Magic. They haven't had the Wagner brothers for the majority of the year, and Desmond Bain. That trade seems like kind of a dud. Meanwhile, Philly will be playing without Joel Embiid. However, I think between Maxey, Edgecombe, Paul George, they have enough firepower. They're going to take down Orlando in Philly. They're going to force Orlando to play the winner of Charlotte, Miami, which will be Charlotte. I do think that Charlotte's going to take care of business at home. I don't trust Miami. I don't believe in them. I think that the offensive firepower that Charlotte has is just too much for Miami. So you're going to get a number 8 game between Charlotte in Orlando. And I'm going to say the Charlotte Hornets are going to upset the Orlando Magic in Orlando. They're going to snag that 8th seed, and you're going to have a Charlotte Detroit first round matchup, and you're going to have a Philly Boston first round matchup. Now, in terms of 3 and 6 and 4 and 5 in the East, you have the Knicks and the Hawks. I like this matchup for people who want the Knicks to lose more so than I liked the Raptors matchup. I think that the Knicks would have steamrolled the Raptors. I think the Hawks give them a little bit more of a fight behind Jalen Johnson, behind Nikhil Alexander Walker, and then also you got CJ McCollum in there as your veteran presence. I think that that series can go 6. I have New York probably beating Atlanta in 6, but I do think Atlanta is good enough to take 2 games off the Knicks. And then that Cleveland Toronto series, Cleveland at the 4, Toronto at the 5. Give me Cleveland in 5 games. I don't think Toronto is a good team. I don't like the construction of that roster. They're just too soft. I don't think Cleveland's a hard team, but I have I have Cleveland advancing. I have New York advancing. Detroit will take care of Charlotte in 5 games, and the Celtics will take care of Philly in 6 games. I think Philly will win a few just because they're young and they're hungry. And that is what I have in the East. We have we have Boston beating Philly in 6. We have Detroit beating Charlotte in 5. We have New York beating Atlanta in 6, and we have Cleveland beating Toronto in 5. We move on to the West. Look at the play-in games. You have the Phoenix Suns at the Blazers. This is a big moment for Devin Booker for him to kind of take control and say, look, you guys talk about every single motherfucker in the West. You talk about Shea, you talk about Luka, you talk about Wemby, you talk about KD, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Edwards. Don't forget that I am also a top player in the West. I took my team to the NBA Finals several years ago when we had Mikal Bridges, Chris Paul, Cam Johnson, DeAndre Ayton. I'm still here. So I have him making a statement against the Blazers at home. The loser of that game will play the winner of Clippers Warriors. As much as I want to pick the Warriors to advance, I'd love to see my guy Steph Curry go on a run. I just don't see it. A healthy Clippers team with Kawhi Leonard and Darius Garland is just going to be too much for the Golden State Warriors. They're going to have to retool this roster in the offseason and figure out what they can do to get Steph help. Obviously, no Jimmy Butler in the playoffs is a massive blow for them. But over the years, you've lost Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole. You've gotten back Jimmy Butler, but you haven't gotten much else back. I don't think Brandon Podzinski's the answer. I just don't think a guy who hasn't scored 30 in this league yet, out of all the guys in the NBA to score 30 in the last few years, Steph has no one to help him. So they're going to have to retool that roster. But yeah, give me LA Clippers and the Portland Trailblazers for that eighth spot. Unfortunately, I have the Clippers beating the Blazers. I know that Denis Avdia and the Blazers have been a nice story this year. I just don't think they're able to win 1 out of 2 games. I think they lose to the Suns and then they lose to the Clippers. So the Clippers slip into the 8th seed. The Suns keep the 7th seed. Then we have Denver versus Minnesota. This is a fun series. Everyone keeps counting out Anthony Edwards. I'm going to continue to count him out. He's not beating Nikola Jokic. I have Denver winning this series in 7. I think this series goes 7. LA and Houston will be fun. I don't know the health status of Luka Doncic or Austin Reeves. I would hope that one of those guys can play. This is probably the series that I'm least confident on. I think this can go either way. Give me LA in 6. Something about Houston and Ime Udoka, I just don't trust them in the playoffs. They lost last year in the first round to Golden State. I think they lose again this year to the Lakers. OKC is going to take down the Clippers in 4 games, And I think that San Antonio will beat the Suns. That series is actually going to be interesting. I do think the Suns give them a run for the money. I think San Antonio will beat the Suns in 6 games. I think that'll take 6 games. All right. So we have, thanks, Homer. We have the Thunder moving on. We have the Thunder moving on in 4. We have the Spurs moving on in 6. We have Denver moving on in 7. We have LA moving on in 8. I don't have any first round upsets at all. I have all chalk. Pretty boring. Um, if I had to pick an upset, I would say that Minnesota series. I can see Minnesota beating Denver. And in the East, I could see Atlanta beating New York. That's the only series where I potentially think there might be an upset. But otherwise, first round's going to be fun. Second round's going to be better. This is going to be a very entertaining playoffs. We have so much firepower. The fact that guys like Steph Curry, Kawhi Leonard are at the end in terms of the bottom seeds, and then you have superstars like Tyrese Maxey, Banchero, LaMelo Ball. They're trying to just make a name for themselves in the playoffs at this point. Really, really, really excited to watch this playoffs. Starting tomorrow, starting with the playing game tomorrow on Tuesday. So, all right, is it Tuesday or when? I think it's tomorrow. I think it's Tuesday. Shout out to everyone again who stuck with us this season. I'll be honest with you, 2025-26 was not the most fun season for the Nets. Wasn't the most fun season if you're a Nets fan. Was pretty fucking miserable. And I made sure I forced myself. I said this on the previous podcast. I made sure I watched every single minute of every single game I could. I recorded every game. I watched every loss, whether it was a 40, 50 point loss. I watched it. Okay. I watched us be non competitive against the Knicks for the most part. I think we had 1 or 2 games where we were able to compete, but yeah, we had the one where was it Ben Saraf took the half court shot. I think we lost that game by 1 or 2. Um, but I watched every game. I watched every minute because I want to enjoy the highs as much as I hate the lows. And that's where I'm at as a Nets fan. But guys, mission accomplished. We tanked. We did it. That's what it's all about. Thank you guys for listening again to another edition of Spenny and the Nets, episode 250. And I'll talk to you guys when I talk to you. Bye-bye.